morning, Greg.
Good morning. Good morning, Sherman. Good to see you again and talk to you again.
Yeah, good to see you. As Northern Graphite's had some great news in the market the last couple of weeks. In particular, I wanted to focus on just that overall, update that you had put out in terms of the activities of Northern Graphite and the project, the Bissett Creek project in particular. And one of your quotes was, "We're moving towards the green economy, and this is a once in a lifetime opportunity for investors." And I tend to agree with that statement, Greg. As you know, I just got back from about a 3-week trip into Nepal, and when I was in Kathmandu, I was quite excited to be in that area because it's sort of the home of the Himalayas, and fortunately, I booked an ultralight trip to go in to see Annapurna, which is one of the 8,000-meter peaks. There's only 14 of them in the world. And had I not taken that ultralight flight, I would not have seen those mountains. And the reason that really resonated with me as an investor is that the reason you can't see the mountains is because of the smog. And I'm not joking. In the area of Kathmandu and throughout the whole valley in that area, the pollution is very bad. And I just wanted to highlight for all of us as investors, and when we talk about investing with awareness, we're talking about being aware of what's actually going on in this world. And I think people, because battery metals are actually starting to catch on, people sort of don't realize, why are we going electric? And one of the biggest problems we have, and I was reflecting this as I was coming back, they're making us put masks back on in the airplane, even though we're all without masks getting onto the airplane. But we get into the airplane and, people are worried about COVID. But by far, I think one of the biggest things we need to worry about is pollution. And the amount of effect that's coming out of these combustion vehicles is significant. In places like Kathmandu or Delhi, these places are like gas chambers. And it's noticeable after being there for 2 to 3 weeks. Number one, I couldn't see the mountains. Number two, I was starting to have a little bit of trouble breathing. And the whole electrification move is to actually change the way we're creating energy. And obviously with a combustion vehicle, or with an electric vehicle, you need 4 times as much copper, you need graphite, you need tin, you need all these battery metals. But the driving force, I think, for investors to remember is that one of the main reasons we're doing this is that this pollution is actually killing people worldwide. So anyway, it just came rejuvenated to remember that here we are, heading into electrification, and that's one of the key reasons why. And just thought I'd see what you thought of that.
Yeah, that's an extremely important point. We don't notice it quite as much in North America, but I've been to China 3 or 4 times. And one of my flights to Beijing and home was delayed 4 hours because planes couldn't take off and land in Beijing because the smog was so bad. And you see a lot of people there wearing masks pre-COVID. And, you've got a communist government, a totalitarian government there, and staying in power means keeping the people happy. And one of the things that people are very unhappy with is pollution. So the government recognizes that, and the government in China is very serious about cleaning up. And we've seen closures and shutdowns and all kinds of stuff like that, and a very big push towards electric vehicles. They are the biggest and fastest growing market in the world for electric vehicles, and it's all pollution driven. And when the government wants to do something, they just do it. Mm-hmm. So, we can look around over here and say, oh, I've seen a Tesla here and I've seen hybrids there. The stuff that's going on in the rest of the world, China in particular, but also Europe, is, light years ahead of what's happening in North America in terms of the transition to electric vehicles. And the whole battery minerals thing, when I said it's a once in a lifetime opportunity, look back to the commodity supercycle and the growth in China. That was a once in a lifetime opportunity, a major structural change in commodity markets in the world. And the same thing is happening and will happen with battery minerals. The numbers are off the charts in terms of potential battery mineral demand. To paraphrase J.B. Straubel, who is the co-founder of Tesla, the raw material demand numbers are insane. So even if you give them a substantial haircut and say it's going to be slower, it's not going to be as quick, let's take those forecasts and cut them 70%, you still need multiple new graphite, lithium, and cobalt mines. So this is, I hesitate to use the term game-changing. People throw that out too often. It's world-changing. It's life-changing, this whole transition to electric vehicles. And the battery and car makers are all in. We are talking about hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars of investment they've already committed. So going to be very interesting times for companies like Northern Graphite.
Well, and I totally agree. And, I was recently talking to one of the senior executives at the Jimmy Pattison Group, and they kind of echoed what you said. And this is one of the largest auto dealers in Canada. And this wasn't a bunch of arm waving. They just plain out told me, like, sure, we're going to be within 5 years, 60% of all the vehicles we're going to sell are going to be electric. So you've got this very much to your point. When you change transportation, you change the world. And I think, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to, wrap up with maybe another 5 minutes of this video, because, we've talked about the macroeconomic, and, it's like when I was on the plane talking about awareness, it's just, as I was leaving Kathmandu, it was like a lightning bolt lighting up the sky. And, you just want to tell investors that, like, guys, this is sort of a once in a lifetime opportunity. So you can go out, you can buy copper futures, or you could buy, obviously there's certain assets that you can buy futures on, like copper, or you can go out and you can hand pick a really good quality company that's doing business in the battery metal space. So what we tell our shareholders and our investors and shareholders of Northern Graphite is look for a company that's got great people, great management, has a great project or two, and is available at the right price. And so, I'll turn it back over to you just to give us a little bit of an update with Northern Graphite. But I tell people, and I probably told a few people on the plane, number one, look at battery metals. You're not going to make an electric vehicle without graphite. And then so don't just go out and buy a pail of graphite. Find a company that knows what they're doing in the graphite space, run by capable management. And that's where, obviously, so we talked about the macro, and now we say, okay, well, how do we put that into operation? People should look at buying shares in Northern Graphite. So maybe just give us a bit of an update and, why you're so excited about what's going on.
Yeah, sure. Again, just quickly on the macro front, graphite is the largest individual component in a lithium battery and requires the largest production increase of any battery mineral. But it really hasn't got the love or attention of the other minerals like lithium and cobalt. And one of the reasons for that is we haven't had the dramatic price spike that they have had. Graphite prices have been slowly creeping up, and they're up 30 or 40%, which is meaningful. But, kind of that really buying frenzy kind of thing hasn't happened, but it's going to happen. Graphite demand is growing over 20% a year, and production is not increasing anywhere near that rate. Part of that has been absorbed by excess production capacity in China, and that's pretty well over. So it's an opportunity to get into graphite when prices are still reasonable. And then you have the challenge of what graphite company do I pick? There are 20 or 25 advanced stage projects out there with feasibility studies. Most are in Africa. Not all have battery grade graphite. It's very difficult for investors to sort that out. And also graphite is not, graphite pricing in the industry is not as transparent or opaque as say, base or precious metals. So what we have done is to try and make that easy for investors to make that decision. And we have entered into a deal to buy the natural graphite division of Imerys SA. They have over 100 mines in different countries doing industrial minerals. We're buying the natural graphite division. That will, excuse me, you can cut that part out. Yeah, so that transaction, when it closes in the coming week, we've been at it for about a year. It's been a very long, complex process, and those delays have held our share price back. But when we complete that transaction, we will be the only North American graphite producer. And within a year, we will be the third largest non-Chinese graphite producer. We'll have 4 projects, all located in politically stable countries, close to infrastructure. Very good future growth profile from those projects. So, you know, the combination of current production, great growth profile, good, still attractive valuation. I don't believe there's another graphite company out there that can say that. And once we close that transaction with Imerys, we have a whole shopping list of stuff that we intend to do to grow the company from that base. So it's going to be very exciting times for us.
That's awesome, Greg. Well, you know, thanks so much for the update. You know, we certainly, you investors that are watching this interview today have every opportunity to simply go and check out Northern Graphite's website, look at the corporate presentation, you know, look at the chart. You know, we also believe that this is, you know, incredible value. You know, we've talked about just on the surface about the projects. You know, certainly the people are involved. You know, so the last 10 minutes I've spent with Greg Bose, who's the Chief Executive Officer of Northern Graphite. And so just in closing, Greg, you know, thanks a lot for taking the time. And I hope you enjoyed my story about being in Nepal. And literally one of my tour guides said to me, Sherman, I'm so glad that you went on that ultralight flight, because he had a client there who came from Europe or someplace and spent 2 weeks in Nepal and actually never saw the Himalayas. And like some people would argue, well, that's kind of disappointing. And, you know, they might try and tell you that it was cloudy that day, but it's not cloudy. It literally is pollution.
Yeah.
So
yeah, just going back to that Beijing flight, I was sitting in their city down by Shanghai, and they said there's a weather problem in Beijing. So I went on the internet and checked the weather in Beijing, and it said clear and sunny. And it was clear and sunny in terms of the weather, but that was not the smog report.
Yeah. So there you go, guys. I mean, that's what it's all, you know, a lot of what we're talking about is electrification and how that's going to change our world. And that's all fine, you know, but as investors, you know, I think it's really important. And, you know, Greg and I, we know that, you know, battery metals and copper and zinc, graphite, tin, they're parts of our portfolios. So we put our money where our mouth is, and because we're believers in the long-term fundamentals of electrification. So thanks again, Greg. Have a great day.
All right. Thank you, Sherman.
Yep.